Welcome back to Long Distance Work Life, where we help you lead, work, and thrive in remote and hybrid teams. I'm Marissa Eikenberry, a fellow remote worker, and joining me is my co-host and remote work expert, Wayne Turmel.
That would be me. Hi.
Hi. So today, at the time of this recording, it's December. We're getting ready to think about holidays and taking time off. And so I wanted to start with what it looks like when the office closes for the holidays. So I was going to say, Wayne, do you already have something to
Well,
say?
what it looks like when the office closes for the holidays is a lot like the office has looked for the last 2 years, except there's like garland around.
Yeah, lights are on and cookies are left
Other
over.
than that, it doesn't look all that different. What we're talking is not physically what it looks like, obviously, but how we go about making sure that things function and work gets done and all of that good stuff. So there's a couple of pieces to this, right?
Right.
And I think it starts with, what are your company's plans for what we lovingly call the holidays? Obviously, and I don't want to get into the non-existent war on Christmas or any of that foolishness, but, there are about 20 different holidays that are recognized, all falling around the winter solstice / Christmas / New Year's. And depending on where you work and who you are and what you're into, any of those things might be impacted. And on top of that, we have things like use it or lose it time, where people have to close, people have to take vacation time or they won't get paid for it. And then, oh, by the way, there's, what does your employer decide to do in terms of being benevolent and saying you don't have to work? So this is not as simple a question as it sounds.
Of course. I was going to say, so let's start off with that first topic that you started to introduce is, this idea that there are so many holidays that happen in this, month and a half or so long period. And with that too, you have international offices where, okay, the US office is celebrating, Hanukkah and Christmas. But the point is that, if there's also times where people are in holidays and there's other offices that are still working. You have a video, and I'll link to it in the show notes, about, July 4th for Canada is just July 4th. Everybody's still in the office.
Yeah, and growing up in Canada, and this is also true for the UK, the idea of going into the office the day after Christmas is just unfathomable, because that's Boxing Day. And then we spend all our time explaining to Americans what Boxing Day is. So really what we need to do is stop worrying so much about the calendar. And which sounds odd, but we know that this time of year is going to be madness, and the organization is not going to stop functioning, hopefully, just because the calendar says a certain date. So we need to go back to what we've always had to do with remote and hybrid teams, which is, what is job one? How do we make sure that business gets done, that customers get served, that anything that needs to happen? I mean, one of the sad realities is Christmas and New Year's come at the end of the month and the end of the year. And so, your salespeople might be kicking back and going, whew, I'm done for a couple of weeks. And your poor accounting people are sitting there like Bob Cratchit, busily filling out forms on Christmas Eve.
God love him.
God bless us, everyone. So what needs to happen? And organizations need to think about, they need to decide, we're going to physically close the office on such and such a day. But on a team and function level, you need to sit down and say, okay, who's taking time off? What needs to happen, right? Do we need to have X people on duty on these days, right? Christmas falls. When does Christmas fall this year?
Saturday.
It falls on a Saturday, right? So probably Christmas Eve, a lot of people aren't going to bother to come in, but we might be open half a day. And then, Boxing Day is Sunday. So in North America, they're going to be off anyway. You got to figure out what are the logistics both in terms of the calendar and in terms of what's it going to take to get the work done.
Right.
So that's just kind of nuts and bolts. You look at the calendar and you say, is the company going to grind to a screeching halt?
Right.
Then you're going to say, okay, if you aren't working, how do we handle this? And if you are working, how do you handle this so that people are respecting your time, not overloading you, being fair, and the work still continues?
Right. So going into that, so we've talked a little bit about like how the leaders, deal with this kind of thing. So how about as a team member? How as a team member can I let my fellow teammates know I'm taking time off?
Yeah, and the first question is, are you actually taking time off? So I'll give you my own
Yeah.
personal example. Uh, we're traveling. We'll be back on the 27th. There's a whole 3 or 4 days that week. I'm not planning to do a whole lot, but I
Hmm.
have couple of customer calls that they've requested for before that time. So I'll be around,
Yeah. Okay, that makes
right?
sense.
That's different than I'm working 9 to 5 those
Right.
days. And it's very different from this is paid vacation time. And I am not working stamp, no erases during that
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. Yeah, like, to our point, like I'm taking the last 2 weeks of the year off and I'm like nobody bother me because I'm
Yeah,
done.
there will be no websites developed the last 2 weeks of the year. Deal with that.
Right.
Right. But that's very different than me being around. And if somebody
Yeah.
needs me, so I have to say, these are the dates that are inviolable,
Mhm.
right? We're traveling this date, we're coming back this date. Do not bother me on those days.
Mhm.
These are the days that I'm available if you need me,
Right.
right? If somebody needs me to do something, I'm available. And then, I'm working up until this time on this date, and I resume work at this time on this date.
Right.
And
That makes
all
sense.
of this, people are listening to this going, yes, you idiot. How would you do it any different? But the fact is that we don't communicate a lot of this.
Right. Yeah, we know that we're taking time off, but we don't
Yeah, we
say
know
anything to
what we're
anybody
doing.
else.
And
Our manager.
I might even take the step of telling my manager,
Right.
but that doesn't mean that Angie knows
Yeah.
when I'm available or not. Or poor Lisa is busy trying to close out the month and she has a question and she's going, well, do I bother him?
Right.
Right. So we just need some basic communication. And there are some very obvious things, uh, sharing calendars
Mhm.
and making sure that everybody has visibility to your calendar and that it is marked in a way that human beings can interpret.
Yes.
Because we all have our own little way of marking stuff and labeling stuff, but it doesn't mean somebody looking at it knows what the heck they're doing.
Well, and real quick before you move on, like one thing I've noticed with Google Calendar, which I know a lot of people use like G Suite or something like that on their teams, is if you block out okay, I'm taking this week off or this day and I'm out of the office, you can have it set that if somebody sends you a meeting request, it will automatically cancel it. Like there's no meetings that are going to
Right.
happen on that day because you're out.
Right. And so use your technology, whatever system you're using, Outlook, Google, whatever
Right.
you're using, use that wisely and make it easy for people
Yes.
to understand what's going on. The same is true of status updates. If the way that I really like in Slack, yes, you can say you're available or you're not available, and you can delay notifications or not. But I like putting an explanation in there,
Yeah, I do too.
right? Because does away mean that you are out of the office and coming back soon? It doesn't give you a lot of information,
Right.
right? Available, unavailable, do not disturb doesn't tell me how to work with you or when you're available or any of that stuff. So this is all really simple and even a bit simplistic. And yet it's shocking how infrequently people do these little things. You've heard me say before multiple times, my favorite quote from Napoleon is, if you want to avoid war, you avoid the 1,000 little pinpricks that lead to war.
Absolutely.
And these are the kinds of little things, the stones in our shoe, that make us crazy. And when you add holidays and who's where and what time is it and all of those things, we need to be mindful. The more mindful we are, the more intentional we are about this stuff, the less it's going to matter. It's also, by the way, we might learn something, which is, it's shocking when so many people are out of the office that things still get done and the world doesn't come to a screeching halt.
Oh, for sure. And sometimes that's because, people planned ahead or whatever, but not always.
Well, but a lot of times you plan ahead, you clear your calendar, you arrange what's going to happen when you get back. The more of that thinking and intentionality you do, the less it really matters.
So one of the things you were talking about a little bit ago that I'd really like to touch back on is this idea of like taking your vacation days. We get to the very end of the year and, you talk about use it or lose it. Like, you have all these vacation days. What do you do? So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the first thing I would say, and I say this lovingly, is get over yourself.
Okay.
Unless you own the company.
Okay.
And even then, right? But unless you're a one-man shop, this is the time of year where you realize that if you've done your job right, the world does not revolve around you.
Absolutely.
and can, in fact, if you, as a manager, if one person being away upends the company and creates chaos, you're probably doing something wrong.
Absolutely.
So this is your chance to start thinking about, if I am gone, who can pick up my duties? If something happens, for example, on the sales team here, I'm going to be around the 27th.
Yeah.
Or the whatever. If somebody needs me, if they want to forward their customers to me, I'll be around. I can handle any emergency that happens. You want to lay that kind of groundwork.
Yeah, and that's where some of those, I know we see it all the time with like away messages or for emails, hey, I'm not in the office, but you can contact so-and-so if there's an emergency that can't wait.
Now, it should probably go without saying, but most things that should go without saying need to be said. You might want to tell the other person that you are forwarding your mail to them.
Of course. Communication is key, right?
Communication is key, but it's really a matter of, if somebody calls, I mean, risk analysis is simply, what are the chances something's going to happen and what is the impact if it does? This is risk analysis, right?
Yeah.
Are your customers in the office during this time? What are the odds of somebody actually needing to get hold of you? If they need to get hold of you, what are you going to do about it? Is there a chance you're going to need to take action during this time? If not, hey, I'm back in the office January 2nd. Have a nice holiday.
Yeah, I'll call you then.
It is fine. If there's a chance you really need to do something, if this is important, call my contact Wayne, who is handling this in my absence.
Right.
It's just intentionality.
Which is what we say almost every episode. But yes, you're absolutely right.
If you boil this entire show down to its essence, it's, hi, that work you're doing? Try to think about it, okay?
Right? Be intentional. Communicate.
If you think about it, you can actually head off a lot of problems. But this does, your question about taking vacation time, I'm being very flippant about this. And it's a very real thing. Mm-hmm. North Americans, and Americans in particular, are notoriously bad about this. We don't disconnect. We don't truly take a lot of us don't take our vacation time, which is basically donating money to your employer, which I'm a team player, but no, thank you very much.
Right.
So take your vacation. It's also really important because as much as we love this time of year and it's fun and it's all this stuff that we think about, it is also a cause of incredible stress.
Right.
I mean, think about the people trying to deal with the kids and getting them to all their activities, and mom's got to get to the doctor and all of this stuff that goes on. And oh, by the way, I hate the holidays, and I just
Yeah.
it is incredibly stressful. You owe it to yourself because there are so many stressors at this time. You owe yourself the right to take your vacation time. And in fact, you need to do it because taking 2 weeks off and then coming back more miserable than you left is not doing anybody any good.
Absolutely. Wayne, I want to thank you so much for answering our questions today about, work around the holidays. And for you, dear listener, thank you so much for listening to the Long Distance Work Life. For show notes, transcripts, and other resources, make sure to visit longdistanceworklife.com. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any future episodes. And while you're there, please be sure to like and review. We appreciate the people who have already done so. This helps our show reach more teammates and leaders just like you. Feel free to contact us via email or LinkedIn with the links in our show notes and let us know you listened to the episode or even suggest a topic for Wayne and I to tackle in a future episode. If you'd like to learn more about remote teams, pre-order Wayne and Kevin's new book, The Long Distance Team. You can learn more about the book at longdistanceworklife.com/team. I also want to let you know this is our last episode for the year. Everything else from this point forward is going to be clips or a episode that we've released previously. So new episodes will start back after the first of the year. But thank you so much.
Because we're taking our vacation time.
Absolutely. I'm editing stuff ahead of time and it's all going to get set up. But we want to thank you so much for joining us this year. And as Wayne likes to say, don't let the weasels get you down, and happy holidays.